Well, there's a big problem with the degradation of mineral content in the soil.
Sure.
Which, I mean, we could go down very long rabbit holes with that. But it's a scary thing because we could be eating all the quote unquote right foods, but we're literally getting less minerals from those foods today than we were 50 or 100 years ago. And as much as I like to opt for food whenever possible and be pretty minimalist when it comes to supplements, we are at a point where I feel like it's kind of impossible to have no supplementation, especially from a mineral standpoint, because it's hard to get enough from food. So we are not getting as much from the food that we eat. And this is not just vegetables grown in the soil, but also the animals that eat the vegetables grown from depleted soil. So the whole system is losing minerals. And then we've also hinted at the fact that being a human is a lot more stressful these days. Absolutely. And stress is something that is going to sap nutrients, especially minerals, from you. So we're in this scenario where we're getting less from food and we're burning more through stress. So we've got to work like an uphill battle to overcome some of these nutrient losses. And then with the thyroid state specifically, if we have impaired nutrient extraction, we've got to go even above and beyond what's present in food to get enough from that, because we're not pulling it all out. So we do have to work extra hard at this nutrient piece in the context of hypothyroidism and just like modern humans.
It's also, again, this very frustrating feedback loop, bidirectional relationship where your thyroid requires nutrients to work. So it requires carbohydrates to work. But then when you're consuming those things, your thyroid's not extracting the nutrients from it as well. So you kind of have to, in some ways, just over supply for your body when you have that already, until your body then has enough to get the system running efficiently, and then you can kind of ease up. I think that's really what I've learned for myself, and I know in your practice too, is really the functional nutrition approach. It's not so much only, how do we get the body to function properly, but there is a kind of compensation period that you have to realize that while you're refilling these nutrients, your thyroid is still not functioning well yet. So there's kind of a lead time with it too, which is very frustrating for people, I think.
Yeah, and uncomfortable. And it involves a complete reframe of how we view our relationship to our body. And it creates a really beautiful opportunity to come into partnership with it, right? Like that's a beautiful act to be like, hey, I might be uncomfortable in the body that I'm living in, and I've got all these symptoms. I'm not engaging with life the way I want to right now, but I'm going to take whatever time it takes to eat enough and to like surplus these nutrients in there, even while I'm not feeling good, and trust that that's my way through, instead of, the opposite, being on different teams, feeling like my body's failing me, or being a victim to a thyroid that just decided on its own accord that it doesn't want to do its job. It's a very different way to think about it in relationship with your body.
And I think from a spiritual perspective, our thyroids are so essential and so special to us, and we demand so much from them. And by the time, again, that you're having that hypothyroid, by the time you're seeing your actual labs being degraded, there's been a lot going on probably in your body and life. And I think what's really hard for people, especially New Yorkers, I'm shouting all of you out, is we do not believe that stress is real. We do not believe that stress impacts our health. And one of the first ways that stress impacts us on a physical plane is, I think, through our thyroid too.
Oh yeah.
And it's really, it is a very hard message for people, hilariously, that we deserve to have these nutrients, that we deserve to reduce stress. Would you say that it would be extremely hard for someone to support their thyroid without addressing kind of that spiritual component to it, that stress component?
Yeah. And man, I think when I was like a baby dietitian, I didn't give that enough weight. And over the years, the biggest lesson has been how big a deal the stress and nervous system component of healing is. And it makes sense if we think of it from like how we got into a depleted state standpoint, because it's like we're trying to fill up a bathtub with the drain open in the bottom, and we're extending the healing length of time if we're not working on that aspect too. And I think the like type A perfectionist, like grind hustle culture is a big part of why thyroid issues are so rampant, and why that's like the descriptions we would use for most of the clients that we serve. And if we're not working on that, I mean, we're going to be throwing nutrients and things till we're blue in the face, and it's going to be really hard to see that budge.
It's that is generally what people want to do, is just throw some medication at the problem. I also want to give people hope, by the way, in that I think thyroid issues are not, they're joyously not, they're able to be resolved. They're not something that's so mysterious to us. They're something we have a really good understanding of what's going on with the thyroid. When it comes to the brain, I think we have so much farther to go still. Some things are just too mystical to us. Like, we can understand so much, but I just want people to really understand, taking even the steps that we laid out here, re-nourishing from a macro and micronutrient perspective, reducing inflammation when possible, reducing stress when possible. It's so frustrating, and managing blood sugar. It's frustrating for people to hear also, because they're like, all right, I'm already doing these, or these are such silly recommendations, but these foundations I don't see in any of my clients when they come in. These are not what I see. So, but just so you know, I think, Kaely, like, don't you feel pretty confident around the thyroid stuff? I feel good.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's sometimes almost nice to see, because it does impact so many other body systems, and you're like, cool, we just got to work on this, and everything else will fall into line.
Totally, yeah. And there are mysterious conditions that pop up. Hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's are not as mysterious as we think. I think there's some amazing new mechanisms that we're looking at that are super interesting, but if you support the foundations of your health and you show your body that safety and respect and compassion, the likelihood is the thyroid does come into place.
Yeah. I mean, you are divinely created. It is like such a beautiful system that, like you said, really beautifully, just respect and nourishment. It goes such a long way, and your body always wants to be working optimally and is always trying to get back to that. So if we can just align with that same team, things go a lot faster.
Is there any, now we did the not as fun foundational stuff. Do you have any fun little hacks for the thyroid? I hate that question, but I know people want it, but it's a bad question. I understand that it's a bad question.
It's all right. People love the hacks.
Yeah.
So we could get a little bit more specific on those nutrients and maybe talk about some things that we can bring in. And I always find that fun work, because people associate like health with what I'm going to have to remove from my life. And we actually spend a lot more time bringing things back in. But if we look at the thyroid physiology as we understand it, there's a lot of nutrients, especially minerals, that are involved in all of those steps. And there's some pretty cool research about like aloe vera juice and Hashimoto's, and aloe vera is exceptionally high in potassium. So it's one thought of why that might be helpful, but getting more sodium, potassium, and magnesium in the day, so we can make like some tasty mineral mocktails, or you've probably come across the term adrenal cocktail on Instagram because it's having a moment. But those types of like fun beverages are, food-based, easy to bring in. It's like more exciting than plain water, can really go a long way for thyroid function, because we need those minerals on most steps of production, conversion, and uptake. So we usually will incorporate those into clients' life. Getting some like time in the sun, time in nature goes a long way, and doesn't get mentioned all that often because, I don't know, it doesn't feel as like tactical as a nutrient that you're bringing in, but goes a long way for just quality of life and stress and nervous system. Time in community, time with other people, time playing and laughing and like experiencing joy goes a really long way too. And then I'm a big iodine fan, which is another polarizing topic.
Very polarizing. Ooh, yeah.
But so we won't go too far down the iodine direction, but we usually do explore that with clients with hypothyroidism.